You've reached Conversation with Mr. A. This is your host, Anthony Abastilla. Thank you for listening. Let's get right to the episode. Welcome to another edition of Conversations with Mr. A. This is your host, Anthony Abastilla. So for this edition, I've got Rebecca Shear here with me. Thank you, Rebecca, for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So, Rebecca, just want to check with you to start off with. Could you tell me a little bit what you currently do for a profession and a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so I have worked in and around the mental health world for the last 13 years, and I've worked in and out of schools. I had a geriatric mental health specialty at one point. I love working with usually middle school or high schoolers, and currently I have private practice clients as an independent clinical social worker, and I have a specialty pretty much working with teenagers, but I offer a lot of gender-affirming care, but also I do a lot of expressive art therapy. If there's something to do with art, I like doing that, especially where mental health is concerned.
Awesome. Now, getting to know you a little bit because we used to work together a long time ago. I know you've had some adverse childhood experiences. Can you tell me a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so growing up, where we have adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, in the mental health world, I think I had almost all of them, except for maybe 2 or 3 of them. And so I definitely checked the box in each area of neglect, and I think each one for abuse. And then I think the only thing that didn't necessarily apply to me was maybe incarceration. But yeah, there was a lot of moments of the childhood that were unstable financially, a lot of moments that were homeless or unhoused, and moments where a lot of uncertainties were going on. And so it just wasn't ideal trying to navigate all of that with an absent parent, and where mental health was concerned, addiction, things of that nature. And all of my family lived out of state, so I think that it's enough to try to navigate a childhood where you are dealing with neglect or abuse, or parents dealing with mental health. But when all of your family is completely removed from the situation, or unaware of what's going on, or aware and not doing anything about it. So that was pretty much all 18 years of my childhood.
What did you consider to be some of your toughest obstacles that you came through?
Ooh, as a child, there was a lot. I think that going through to graduation was difficult. Trying to navigate school when you're dealing with the uncertainty of whether or not you're going to have a place to stay, or if you're going to have power when you do, at your house, whether or not your parent's going to be there. I think that maybe not one of those incidents in particular, but the continuation of it happening year after year.
What kept you going throughout all the experiences that you went through? What motivated you to keep going and never give up on things?
One of the things that I was fortunate was that I had community. I had scouting in high school, and so there were some scout leaders that really made sure that I was looked after. In schooling was both like a blessing and a burden, because it gave me the structure that I needed that I definitely wasn't getting at home, but I also retaliated against it because I didn't have to be there. We had an open campus we could walk on and off, so I really had to want to be there. But I think that getting my high school diploma and having teachers who really supported me, I think that there were definitely, from what I felt from my position, that there were teachers who were against me or had their favorites, and because I was poor, what have you, I wasn't one of them. But I think that, those 1 or 2 teachers that I could really connect with that didn't, turn their nose to me or something, or make me feel less than, really helped throughout that, as well as scouting. So, having that community all 4 years of high school.
So having supportive teaching staff, whether it's teachers, counselors, it sounds like they were very, they're needed.
100%. I think that, it's not it wasn't that these teachers in particular that I could see went above and beyond. Like they weren't feeding me. I think my entire senior year I was hungry because the school that I was at cut funding. So we no longer had breakfast. So I didn't get breakfast in the morning. And then they mandated that every household had to pay something. And I think it was like, for us, it was like 45 cents or maybe 50 cents a day. And we couldn't afford it. So my entire senior year, unless I could work, I couldn't afford to eat. And so like when we're talking about those teachers, they didn't necessarily like go above and beyond to make sure that my needs were met, but they definitely allowed me the space to be when, you know, a lot of other people might have noticed, or otherwise, you know, they took care of things in other ways.
How were your interactions with your peers? I mean, were they they had clique groups? Were they nice to you? How were they?
It was interesting because I went to a smaller school and everyone knew everyone's business, which is difficult. So I think that people were more on the side of just ignoring problems that they didn't understand or didn't have to deal with, you know. I did have very close friends who had equally interesting, difficult home lives. And so I had some really close friends who understood and had their own stuff that they were dealing with. And we had our little trio or, you know, group of individuals that were safe together.
Do you still keep in touch with them?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I was in the wedding of one 3 months ago. Yeah. And we met in 5th grade, so. Wow. That's a long-lasting relationships. Yeah.
All right, so, you know, next question I was wondering about is your viewpoints. How have they changed from then to now? How do you look at life differently?
Oh, how do I look at things differently now? I think that I'm a lot more calm and less anxious about things. I have the ability to stop, pause, and reflect. I have had a lot of years of therapy for myself, both before I hit 18 and on my own accord through my 20s and 30s. So I think that having the ability to really reframe things and not jump to conclusions has really helped overall.
And now you help people in crisis yourself. How rewarding is that? Just thinking about your own experiences back then to now.
I think that there's a level of reward for it. I think that seeing individuals do it on their own, or, you know, where they're able to see their own strengths or have the ability to advocate for themselves is really helpful. And I find that to be rewarding. Yeah.
Now, the long-lasting effects of the adversities and the ACEs you talked about, one thing I'm curious is, what are some of the challenges that you face today?
Some of the challenges that I face today would include probably the changing political landscape, I'd say. There's this history in the past where, you know, where I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, and there was either care or there wasn't. And now there is a lot more access to care, which is awesome. But I think that one of the challenges is trying to figure out who can qualify, what are the steps in the process, because it's not as simple as just being able to get care, but, you know, what to do with it when you do get it, or finding the right fit. I think that we have, as on a whole, I would like to think in more states, more often than not, we are embracing mental wellness, which is great. But one of the difficulties is making sure that individuals can get access to the right care. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's people that kind of abuse the care, or they may take it for granted? Because I know you're mentioning how, there's more care now than there was back then. Do you think people take it for granted or abuse it at times?
I don't see that as much. I think that what I've seen is that in the schools and out of the schools, people really want to have care. I don't think that anyone's really gone just to waste their time. Even when I worked in the schools, and, you know, occasionally there might be someone who's like, getting out of class because they just wanted to get out of class. I think that more often than not, the conversations were fruitful when we were talking, and I don't think anyone was abusing it at all. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you mentioned this offline that sometimes you've encountered kids that they want to be counselors themselves, but they kind of they're the ones who need the counseling. How do you approach that, or how do you deal with them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as someone who wants my friends and the people around me to feel good, it can be really difficult when you're with someone in a situation. And I have run into a lot of people who have said, I'm my friend's counselor, or I'm the one that all my friends go to. And I can see both the hope that they have for wanting to make it a better place, which is great. But I can also see the blessing and burden in that, because a lot of grad school for therapy, for me, I think a lot of other people, depending on your program, is, working through your own stuff, but also making sure that you're not bringing that into the session. And, when I'm working, or in the few times that I've worked with individuals who consider themselves the counselor of their friend, they are taking it personally, and they are carrying it with them. And it's a lot of weight. It's a lot of weight to carry it on your own, let alone for other people. And there are a lot of resources and ways to mitigate the impact, because there are things like compassion fatigue, and there are things, like getting burned out, and things that we as professionals know about, and we don't anticipate or expect anyone else to know what these mean, but we as professionals can prevent that in ourselves and our line of work. But it can be really overwhelming for someone who's not aware of that when you're just trying to be a good friend.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. So this is the fun part of the podcast interview. It's called word association. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a word or two, and then just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Now, one of the running jokes here with longtime listeners and last year when I worked at Chimicum was how much I really, really despise pickles. And so I think the first word I'm going to go with is pickles. The first thing that comes to mind.
Rugrats.
Rugrats. Okay. Art.
Therapy.
Okay. Dancing.
Lindy Hop.
Okay. Rap music.
Oh, Tupac.
All right. I like your taste. I like your taste on that one there. Country music.
Oh, country. Two-step. Line dance.
Okay. All right. Breakdancing.
Oh, B-boys.
B-boys. All right. B-boys. Summer.
Grease.
Okay. Winter.
Ice skating.
Okay. Video games.
League of Legends.
Okay. Romance movies. Tell me how you really feel on that one. All right, let's flip the coin. Horror movies.
Ooh.
Okay.
Nightmares.
Nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bad hygiene.
I'll take horror movies.
All right.
Oh, no.
Rude people.
Karen.
Okay. Pizza.
Pineapple.
Steak.
Medium rare.
Okay. Importance of hygiene.
100%.
All right. Awesome. So, in closing, any final words you'd like to tell your listeners, especially those who are going through some adversities?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you've definitely come through a lot. You've overcome a lot. What would you tell those who are maybe they kind of feel like, they'll never overcome the hard times that they're going through? Is there anything you can kind of tell them on that?
I would say wait till you're 18. I think the first 18 years of your life, you don't necessarily get to choose all the adults who are around you, but once you're 18, you kind of can. And if you could implement a network of individuals that have values that align with your own, or the direction you want to go, if it's not similar to where you've been or where you're at now, that there's almost 8 billion people on Earth. Just because you've been around the same 40 or so who don't meet your needs or your expectations or your, your emotional or physical, well-being doesn't mean that there aren't hundreds, if not thousands or millions of people who can, because there are.
There's always hope, it sounds like. Even when it feels like there's no hope, there's always hope.
Oh, yeah. I'm so fortunate and thankful that I kept on going because, I didn't want to go to college, but I did. And
You did pretty good from what I heard.
Straight A's, 4 degrees. I didn't have support from my parents or family or loans or financial aid or anything. I worked 3 jobs. I paid for it, but, I have a humble life, but it's paid for. And I know that some kids are like, oh, do you live in a mansion? You travel out? I'm like, nope, I like to travel. So, it's possible that if you know the direction you're going, there'll be people who support you going in that way. And you just got to find them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Rebecca.
Of course. Until next time.